Hey, hockey fans, Joseph Zakshesky with you for the Rockford Ice Hogs off-season report. And today we get a chance to catch up with defenseman and Chicago Blackhawks prospect Dennis Gilbert as the countdown is on to the NHL draft right here into the thick of the off-season. But Dennis, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. I know it's only been, a couple of weeks really since we last got to catch up with you during the exit interviews here at BMO Harris Bank Center. But how has your summer been? I know you probably took some time off and now looking to get right back into the training routine.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, I've had a good summer so far. It's halfway through June here, so I've been skating and working out again for a couple weeks. I'm lucky. I have a really good situation and set up here in Buffalo, New York, my hometown, where there's like about 8 of us or so that play professionally. That we all work out in the morning together, about 8:30 depending on the day, and then there's ice right after for us at the Harbor Center. So we have a good group of guys that skate, and while we work out, the Buffalo Sabres guys that are in town, they work out separately, and then we all skate together after with the Academy of Hockey guys here. So it's a really good situation, a beautiful arena, beautiful setup. So I'm very fortunate and take full advantage of that for the last few summers here.
Well, you've had a lot in common with a lot of those guys, obviously being from Buffalo and having that as your hometown, but probably a lot of those guys are from other organizations or at different stages of their careers. How much of that is growing as off the ice as it is on the ice and getting to learn and maybe bounce ideas off of, or just getting feedback on your game and how you approach mentally and physically? Yeah,
there's a couple full-time NHLers. Some guys have just kind of started their career. Some guys have been doing it for a long time. One guy that sticks out in my mind particularly is Dan Girardi. He lives just over the border in St. Catharines in Canada there. So he works out with us and skates with us all summer. So he's been a great guy to be able to talk to and kind of bounce some ideas off of, like you said. A super wise guy and a guy who's basically seen it all and been through it all. So he's a great tool for me to kind of talk to and learn from throughout the summer. But on top of all that, there's about 6 of us that are within about 2 years of each other that all kind of played junior growing up together here and played travel hockey together here that are all just starting our professional careers. So it's nice having a younger group of guys that kind of keep you hungry and push you in the weight room, make you competitive on the ice and all that good stuff. And it makes the grueling weeks of the early part of the summer kind of go by a little bit more enjoyable.
How have things changed, maybe say from last summer to now this summer as you just completed your rookie year? Has your mentality changed, maybe your approach to training, or have you come to a realization of maybe some of the drills or execution situations that you were doing during your offseason, maybe last year entering your rookie season, might be a little bit different than going into, say, year number 2 like you are now?
Right, exactly. I think probably the biggest thing has been more comfortability. I've always, for the last probably 5 or 6 years now, I've been working out and skating with the same group of guys, the same staff, but it's a little bit different after, you're a pro hockey player. They kind of look at your insight, look what you want to work on specifically a little bit more in those bigger group settings. They'll come and talk to you and kind of see what you're looking for to get out of things. So last year I was getting that a little bit, but this year even more so. The coaching staff and the workout trainers have been really good about talking to me and kind of working with the people in Chicago too about making sure I get the most I can out of the summer.
And looking at your experience from your rookie year, 63 games with the Ice Hogs, 14 points, got your NHL debut with the Chicago Blackhawks as well in front of family and friends. What's your motivation? What's driving the engine this summer for you in terms of your focus and mentality and preparation for season number 2?
Yeah, I think there's something every summer that you're really pushing yourself on. For me, I was fortunate enough to be able to get called up at the end of the season last year, and it's one of those things where once you go up there and you kind of experience, the pace of play and the lifestyle and how great everything is in Chicago, you want to be there, full time as soon as you can. So that's probably the biggest thing for me is after getting that little taste I had last year in the spring of what it's like to play in the NHL every day. Obviously, you want to work as hard as you can in the summer and put yourself in the best situation as possible for a training camp to kind of line yourself up to hopefully be there as much as you can.
Now, the NHL draft, the countdown is on. It's coming up this weekend, and that one taking place out in Vancouver. The Chicago Blackhawks have the 3rd overall pick. I know there's a lot of excitement, a lot of buzz with that, especially ever since they got that position in the draft lottery. You're a draft pick yourself, Dennis, of the Blackhawks in 2015, 3rd round, 91st overall. That took place in Sunrise, Florida. You were at the draft, so kind of walk us through a draft day for you. You did the combine, you saw and had to work out in front of scouts, but I imagine as a young hockey player, an amateur trying to make the jump to pro, I'm sure there's a lot of nerves and excitement and hoping that your name gets called up on the stage.
Yeah, there was really nothing cooler for me after playing a year junior and deciding where I was in my college hockey to have a good season. And I was afforded a lot of opportunity with going to the combine, like you said, and talking to a bunch of different teams and organizations. And there's a few kids from Buffalo right now that have reached out to me that are kind of going through that process that I went through a few years back. But it's super nerve-wracking obviously, because there's so much anticipation and you want it to happen so bad. But to be totally honest with you, it doesn't really mean a whole lot. For me, the way I looked at it and what I said when I was getting interviewed by the different teams was, as cool and awesome as this is going to be, I know that what I've done to get here is great, and it was a fun journey, and I've worked hard to get to this point. But just getting drafted doesn't really mean a whole lot. And once you get drafted, there's a huge target on your back. There's eyes all over you all the time. That's when your hard work really got to start, and that's when you got to kind of grow up and mature as a player, whether that's your diet, your dedication to your off-season training, your practice habits, your body language, everything that you do after that point is magnified by an entire city, not just your friends or your family or your current team you're playing for, whether that's a junior team or in college. So for me, that was how my dad talked to me about it and kind of made me look at it. As much as you try to make it a small, not big deal thing, and obviously it's a super big deal. Every kid dreams about it when they're a young kid, and there's going to be a lot of kids that, after this weekend here, have a great accomplishment ahead of them, but they also got a lot more they got to work on. And especially with Chicago having that 3rd overall pick, that's going to be a really special player, whoever that is. And I can't wait to meet him and kind of get him out to training camp, if he's a junior guy or whatever, get to meet him and see how he's doing.
Well, with that being said, and congratulations on having a lot of your fellow, hometown natives making the jump to the draft. But, what would you say? What kind of advice are you giving these guys? Because I'd imagine it'd be pretty similar to advice you'd give to a younger Dennis Gilbert when approaching a big weekend that's coming up, such as the draft.
I would say just try to enjoy it and take it all in. I was lucky enough to have a lot of family members come down with me to Florida. My uncle's got a house down there, so we were able to kind of make it a bit of a family weekend with my uncles and some aunts and some cousins and some of my good friends from growing up and playing with. But it's such a cool event, and the league does such a good job with making it a big event for the players and making it very interesting for the fans to watch. You see some sports like baseball kind of have trouble drawing attention to their draft, but hockey has done a great job of marketing it and branding it to be this awesome event. So for all the kids that are going this weekend, you just got to enjoy yourself, enjoy your family, and then try to stay composed during your draft interview. Because I remember when I had mine, I was so nervous and excited and everything like that. I just don't even know what I said, but it was an awesome experience, and I'm sure those kids are going to have a great weekend ahead of them.
What was your? You mentioned the post draft nerves, but what was it like before you were called? What was it like when you were called? I'd imagine you were pretty much ready to jump out of your suit and right into a jersey the second you heard Dennis Gilbert's name announced over the PA system.
Yeah, I was in kind of a weird situation because I never really, I wasn't a kid who went to national camps growing up or, was a super highly touted prospect. I was originally committed to a lower end Division I school. I was a late bloomer in a lot of ways. I kind of grew late. I didn't really develop my game to be an elite level player until much later on, so that year after I played junior. So for me, every time there was like a check-in or a draft board update throughout the season of how prospects were doing, I was always kind of jumping up a couple spots in the rankings. So probably October until the draft actually happened. So I really had no idea if I was going to go in, the 2nd round or the 7th round. So I was just super excited to I was just hoping I would hear my name eventually. And there's all the guys that are going to it now. They know that there's a few teams that you have really good conversations with and you have a good feel for it. So when those teams are going to pick, your ears perk up a little bit. But yeah, Chicago was definitely the favorite team that I had coming out of my draft interviews and just all the communication we had throughout that year. Especially in that spring. So when they were picking, I was super excited. So when I knew they were coming at the end of the 3rd round there, I was hoping that I might be lucky enough to get the selection. And I was obviously blessed and super happy to be picked.
And then again, reminiscing on this wonderful memory for you. I mean, what was the first emotion that came to your mind? You said your family was there. I remember there. I would imagine there was probably hugs and handshakes all around. But I mean, right when you heard it and it actually sank in, and you put on the hat and jersey for the first time, I mean, what were you thinking? What were you feeling? And ultimately, how were you trying to wrap it all into that single moment?
Honestly, my biggest thing was I was just so grateful to my parents. You know, growing up in a middle-class family, hockey's a very expensive sport, and it's very time-consuming. And I have two siblings that were doing a lot of stuff too, and I was just so thankful and grateful that my parents were able to put me through hockey and for the life lessons and all that stuff that's bigger than the game itself that you learn throughout playing. So I was just so grateful to them, and I was so appreciative that they, you know, kept with me and spent all the money it took and were able to put me in a good situation to become a good man. And after I was drafted, my biggest thing was I wanted to, you know, prove them right and show them that it was a worthwhile investment, more than just the life lessons and all of that stuff. So I was just super excited to kind of give them a hug and say thank you and tell them hopefully that I can make them smile harder next time.
And then now you're drafted, you got a season underneath your belt, but I mean, what kind of game planning went into your training that you're doing right now, your mentality getting ready for a new season? Because, you know, you said you had great conversations with the Blackhawks. Your game, you know, hopefully fit their mold at the time. But now, how have you planned accordingly? Now that, you know, you went from that college rank, you got a year underneath your belt, and ultimately trying to push that game plan moving forward. But how has that been able to help you fit even better with the experiences that you've earned since the draft?
I mean, to me, it's all about self-reflection and being able to handle criticism, because if you're a person that thinks that you can't get any better, then you're probably not a very good player. I've taken what I've got from my exit meetings, what I've learned from the coaches over the season, talking to the strength staff at the exit meetings and throughout the season, and kind of learning how I've developed in that 8-month period, give or take a few weeks, and then how can I keep what I've done in that 8-month period to get to the player they want me to be? What can I do in the summer to kind of keep accelerating that? And so when I come in at training camp in the fall, it's not the same player they got at the end of the season. It's an even better player in those different aspects. So it's all about self-reflection and just having a good line of communication, because there's no way to know what they want unless you're talking to them, right? Mm-hmm. So I would, I made it a point to kind of soak everything in, be a sponge at those exit meetings and then those conversations to really understand what they are looking to me to do. And then from there, you have to bring that home to your summer staff. And the staff that I use in the summer in Chicago has an open dialogue. They've been talking about what they think I need to work on, how they can get the best out of me in these 3 or 4 months. So yeah, it's just about communication and having an open mind and be ready to listen.
Dennis, I really appreciate you sharing those wonderful memories with us. And now focusing on the draft this coming weekend and then even the rest of the summer, what does these next few weeks hold for you? I know training's kind of in full swing, but are you going to maybe sneak in one more vacation or any little bit of family time before the camps start rolling around, the weight room sessions start to ramp up, and ultimately you're on the ice full time?
Yeah, I've been pretty dialed in here for the last few weeks now. I'm pretty laid back guy though on the weekends. I'm pretty close to the border here. Some of my friends have some beach houses on Lake Ontario. They're just over the bridge, so I'll spend a weekend or two up there. But yeah, Monday through Friday, I'm pretty dialed into just my training and being on the ice and trying to get the most out of the summer that I can. And then on the weekends, just seeing family and friends and trying to enjoy myself and enjoy being home, because you know during the season you don't get to talk to a lot of people and see everybody as much. So just trying to soak everything in as best I can, but make sure I'm getting good work weeks in as well.
Well, Dennis, again, thank you so much for joining us here on the Ice Hogs Off-Season Report. Enjoy the rest of your summer. Continue to work hard, and we look forward to catching up with you here at training camp pretty soon.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.